Andersonville is thought to be one of the most horrific war prisons that was ever established during the Civil War. This is because of the horrific conditions which the prisoners were held in. The camp was run by Captain Henry Wurz. He was considered one of the most brutal generals during the time. It was practically a death sentence if you were sent there. This is because it was overcrowded to 4 times its population. It had inadequate amounts of water and food. The food was short throughout the camp, but the prisoners received less than the guards did. The water which they drank was oftentimes taken from a creek filled with fecal material of sick and dying men. This, combined with living in filth and poor sanitation, caused many diseases such as scurvy and diarrhea, which proved fatal in most cases. The war prisons were created to hold the 409,000 prisoners which were captured during the Civil War. Both the Union and the Confederacy operated these camps between 1861 and 1865. The Southern camps were created to be much more devastating to the prisoners than the Northern camps were, which is proven through the fact that 15.5% of prisoners died in the Southern camps, while only 12% died in the Northern camps. Northern camps would not have had as high of a mortality rate, but they felt their soldiers were purposely being brutalized, starved, and killed in the Confederate camps. This ultimately led to a reaction by Union camps to treat Confederate soldiers extremely harsh and brutalize them to the point of death. In the South, shortages were the problem, but in the North there was no problem for shortages, just the thought of retaliation on the Confederate camps. In Andersonville, there was a fence called the deadline. This kept prisoners away from the walls and not able to escape. If you were found at the deadline, you were shot dead immediately. There was no remorse given at the deadline. It was a strict policy. Many prisoners at the camp struggled to get food and ultimately starved. This, along with diarrhea, was mainly the causes for death due to the fact that they had to drink water from a creek with fecal substances in it from dying and sick men. Another thing which prisoners had to watch out for was a group of their own prisoners known as the raiders. These prisoners would join together in the camp and raid people of their jewelry, money, and food, along with their clothes. These men were oftentimes armed and would kill if they had to in order to get what they wanted. These men were ultimately captured and hanged for their crimes against the other prisoners. After the liberation of Andersonville in May 1865, Captain Henry Wurz was put on trial by a military tribune on charges of war crimes. Many prisoners who survived testified about conditions at Andersonville and accused Wurz of many specific acts of cruelty. Wurz was the only Confederate official to be tried and convicted of war crimes because of the Civil War. He was ultimately hanged on the charges he was tried.